intro!
Okay, we'll start over.
From the top! Make it drop.
Hey, and welcome to our movie review show where every episode we watch a movie. One team loves it, one team hates it. The trick is no one knows which side they're on until I figure it out. For this week, we watched Ghostbusters Afterlife, which did something original for ghost movies, where they just moved to a small town and found a creepy house, and it was spooky?
We've never seen it before.
Spooky!
Mom and two kids moved to a small town, and you got ghosts there. That's never been done before.
I don't watch horror movies, so this is all new to me.
So what made this movie so good?
Yeah, man. Cody's mad. I grew up watching the original Ghostbusters movies, and even the cartoons. The original Ghostbusters, and then I think that's what's called the Ghostbusters Extreme Ghostbusters,
because it was from the 90s.
Right, and so I think some of the things that made this movie good, one is it kept the same atmosphere and feeling of the originals while still modernizing it. I feel like you have a hard time taking something from the 80s and bringing it back into modern and still giving it that thing without trying to make it a retro movie. They didn't try to make it a retro movie. They just tried to make it its own thing and pay a lot of homage to the original. That being said, there were a lot of references to the original first two movies, which I really enjoyed. As somebody who's like a huge Star Wars fan, I'm always looking for like subtle references and things, and I think this movie did a really good job at providing that. And then the third thing is, I just had so much fun with it. It's just such a fun movie. Like, say you take Stranger Things, and then you go time travel back to the 90s, and you get the high-C ectoplasm cooler, and you just cover that all over Stranger Things, and then have a pizza party, and then add the sexiest man in the world into that. That's what this movie did for me. It made me feel like a kid and question my sexuality.
I just want to highlight, he's the sexiest man alive, according to GQ standards this year. Not the sexiest man in the world. There could be sexier men who are no longer alive. We don't know.
Even with that, he has high C and pizza on his side.
Yeah.
So
I feel like if you just cover things in high C and pizza, it's no longer sexy, but just a mess.
if you're from the 90s, it's pretty sweet.
Cody, if you could just stop king shaming, that would be awesome.
Now, I'm stoked for this movie.
Yeah.
Tell me why I shouldn't be. Why does this movie suck?
Okay, let's just talk about how, every trope that we've seen. You've got like a remake of an old movie. Well, how do we bring out the original, tools and stuff? Oh yeah, after the grandfather dies, grandchildren move back to the house. They find their grandpa's stuff. It's just the most original layout we've ever seen. They inherited an old house that already had all the Ghostbusters stuff in it, and then they slowly found it. It was just like, it's like we've seen it. We've seen it over and over. I feel like every single revamp of the 80s or whatever, or not just the 80s, but just revamp of movies that have been done or whatever, it's just kind of the same premise. So the first half hour of the movie, you can basically skip it and be like, yeah, I know what this is because I've already watched other movies before. Other than that, it was there were some cool references to older stuff, but it was just kind of them cashing in on basically, redoing a movie from the 80s that it's just like there's no original ideas anymore. So we tried revamping with a bunch of women. That didn't work. Well, let's just continue the old story with no originality to it. Turns out, didn't work either.
Okay. That sounds like a bummer.
I'm just tired of being pandered to as a fan. I want original stories. I'm kind of tired of let's just redo the same thing in unoriginal ways.
And yet it worked because it got our money. By our money, I mean your money.
But we went to a matinee,
snacks.
so if you're going to spend money on it, dude, just go to the matinee and at least save half your money. It's half worth it.
Or go to the matinee and watch that, followed by Dune. Again, I want to bring this back to Dune.
We're going to stick to Ghostbusters.
I like Dune.
Whiskey's currently down a point for recommending a different movie while defending a movie.
Okay, I would also like to recommend Dune. I haven't seen it yet, but I'll just say in relation to Ghostbusters, it couldn't be worse, so just save your time. Go watch Dune.
Okay, there's only so much we can get into without spoiling things.
Yeah.
So why don't we just get right into the spoiler zone?
Bam, bam, bam!
Yeah.
Spoiler zone. Oh, we do dabs over my head.
Oh, my God.
Just connect.
Oh. This isn't like ironic funny. This is like, oh, these are old
Year
people.
one.
Since we had Whiskey start off last round,
Yeah.
we'll have you start off, Mr. Hate It,
Oh, man, where
Mr.
does-
Awful,
Where to start? I guess I'll just start with my note.
and go.
Okay, cool. I kind of already jumped into it. My first plot was just the fact that they, it's another remake. Man. I mean, it's basically we haven't had a good story to tell, so let's tell a story that's 40 years old, and then also let's save some time filming and also just re-show half of the movie from 40 years ago in news clips and YouTube clips. So I just thought it was kind of like lame, where we've seen it before, and then the story itself wasn't like spectacular. Like we brought in some of the original cast, actually almost all the original cast, all the ones who are still alive, and that was so. I mean, it was cool, but at the same time, it was just like, okay, do they not have anything better to do? Can we not write a new story, or maybe just revamp it and just have it about them? I just feel like the whole idea of people's, I don't know, the grandchildren coming in and suddenly they're fighting ghosts, which took them, 2 days to find the equipment and be like, oh, I wonder how this works. Let's go catch a ghost this afternoon. It was just kind of absurd.
Is that the amount of time it all took place in?
Basically,
within 2
it was
days?
literally like, she found the thing, led to the, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. It was really fast. They solved everything really fast, caught their first ghost within like a day of finding the, photon packs or whatever they're called. Also, I get how they're kind of doing like a subtle nudge to the 80s animation, but the animation, the dogs look like puppets. Like, we have the ability to have like CGI, and then we've got the ability to do like real live, like what Star Wars does. And I feel like it was in between where it was like CGI over the top of a puppet with like really mechanical movements, so like the evil dog things with the horns. I don't know what they're called. Was their name?
The gatekeeper.
The gatekeeper, yeah. Anyways,
key holder.
they just looked terrible. Like it looked so corny. So like I get it as an 80s effect. It looked good, but we have the technology and we saw really good effects in the movie. So why the main two antagonists looked so corny was like beyond me. And then the last thing I'll say really quickly.
You better hurry.
There was kind of a plot hole at the very end of the movie, just in the sense we've got not Vincent Spengler as a ghost helping his granddaughter suck in the ghost. We have 100 ghost traps out there. They set them all off at once, and Spengler is unaffected. So apparently they were tuned to ghosts that were monsters and not actual ghosts. So that was completely unexplained. Like, why was he standing over all the traps and the only ghost out of like the 1,000 of them that wasn't sucked into a trap? He should have been sucked up immediately. That would have made way more sense. It just wasn't explained. It was dumb.
Do I get a rebuttal to that?
Yes.
Yes, in 1 sec. Quick question about the dogs.
Yeah.
Was it like a very obvious throwback? Like, hey, we're using the same effects as the 80s movie. Look at how cool this is.
If it was a reference, if the animation was like characters we'd seen in the 80s movie, I could see that. But it was like with the animation for the Stay Puft people was like way more believable, and it was the throwback to the original Stay Puft Marshmallow in Ghostbusters 1, and the dogs were like a new thing, but their animation was crappier than the Stay Puft Marshmallows, and it didn't make sense in that sense.
Aren't they the dogs from the first movie? The gatekeeper dogs?
They're in the first movie?
Okay, we're going to move on to Whiskey now. Boy, these sources are good. Whiskey, are you prepared?
No.
Go.
No. So actually, a lot of what Cody said are some of the reasons why I really liked it. I liked the practical effects that they did for the gatekeeper and the key holder in that, because for me, I was like, it brought me back to being a kid and my dad just like go. Yeah. He came back. He came back. He came back. He literally went to get cigarettes, but he came back. And he would just be like, oh, I think Ghostbusters is on. Watch Ghostbusters. I'm like, okay. So for me, it brought that, like, and it was like one scene that they had the practical effect for the most part with the gatekeeper and the key holder. And so for me, I was like, oh, that's like a cool homage. And later we see that really good special effects with those. One of the other things that I really enjoyed is I actually really enjoyed the fact that a Ghostbuster came back as a ghost to help hunt ghosts, meaning that he is so focused on trying to stop this. Like, we see that he left his family because he realized the impact that was going to happen if this all came back. And so through that, we see that even from beyond the grave, he was doing that. And if you actually look at the placement, he wasn't in the range of the boxes. So that negates that point. Another thing that I really enjoyed was just the how they made the main character Phoebe, right? Yeah, Phoebe. I really enjoyed how the movie really showed you like who Phoebe was and how she interacted with things, like from subtle things of like her parents' influence of don't be yourself, but her being herself is what helped save the world at the end. And the fact that she'd just be like, I don't process things like normal people. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, or quote unquote normal people. I was like, that's really refreshing. And it was kind of an homage to her grandfather, like from the glasses to like the weird hair and everything like that. For me, I really enjoyed that. How much? That was like perfect. Yeah.
Right on time.
All right.
Bonus points for being on time.
Thanks. Dune was awesome.
That concludes the Dune portion.
What?
Cool. I was going to say, as far as the boxes thing, you said that he was out of the range of those. That makes like no sense because the ghosts above were like hundreds of feet away, and he was like 10 feet away. So he wasn't standing directly on them, but he wasn't like away from them far enough. They were pulling into.
They were connected to the Sumerian god, so that was all emanating. And the Sumerian god was connected to the other two ghosts, which were emanating that thing. So they had already established that if you get rid of the gatekeeper and the key holder, that the Sumerian god wouldn't be there. So that whole field there, and the fact that they had to slide everything underneath with the whole RC car, otherwise it had to be in range, negates that.
Yeah, so the thing is, I mean, that's really good writing if that's what they've done in the movie, but instead they let someone write it for them afterwards, because that's not at all what they said in the movie.
Like I said, I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
Fair enough.
Checkmate!
I understand, and as far as the dog things being a reference to the 80s, I do not remember that role. Again, I haven't seen the first one in probably 15
Was that one
years.
or two that those ones were
It's
in?
one, and
Is
they're
it
like,
one?
it's a major component to the movie.
I don't remember. I remember the green ghost, and I remember Stay Puft Marshmallow, and I remember the ghost in the library. I don't remember dog things. But either way, that very well may have been in there. I just think...
Because they possess Sigourney Weaver, because that's when they're...
Yeah, and
okay.
Rick Moranis.
And Rick Moranis, yeah, because that becomes the whole only Zool part, which they...
which they reference. That said, so those may have been a solid reference or whatever. I felt like the animation was kind of in between, where it was like, sure, it was homage, but then it was also new animation. I just felt like it kind of slipped back and forth between quality, which kind of took myself out of the illusion of the movie, because when you see animation that's like clearly bad animation, whether it's homage or not, it kind of ruins it when you're like, it's filmed in 2021, really good effects 90% of the time, and then randomly some of the effects are just really bad. They're like, we're referencing the 80s. It's like, or just make the whole movie look good. I didn't think it was I didn't like that aspect of it, because it did take you out of it.
In reference to Star Wars, because you keep bringing it up, Rogue One did something where they did a lot of classic
practical effects.
Yeah.
And for me, I like that. I totally get what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
Because for me, I remember like the first time I saw it, I was like, that's practical effects. That's okay, I get why you're doing it.
But everything looked good, and I think it's because like Cody's saying, it doesn't like flip flop back and forth.
That's the thing.
It's
Practical
more
effects are
consistent.
great. Like again, I love Lord of the Rings practical effects, and I also love The Hobbit, which are VFX. The difference is they have one of them is it's all VFX in The Hobbit. It's all practical effects in Lord of the Rings. The special effect, the flip flopping of back and forth. It wasn't like as seamless as you'd hope. It kind of just took you out of the scene.
But
I can understand that, because it did take me out of the scene, because I remember being like, oh, practical effects, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I noticed it. So
Yeah.
I get that. But for me, I noticed it and enjoyed it, whereas you noticed it and went, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the correct term?
Yeah, basically. That was that.
It's a scientific term.
It's a scientific term.
I'm a seismologist.
the big issue I could see with it is it's a throwback. It's something that like fans of the movie can see, but if there's someone who's not as familiar with the movie, it breaks immersion.
Sure.
Right.
I would say how many references there were to the original movie and showing the original movie. I feel like if that was something that was established and they were trying to reference to, they could have, I don't know, at least made it clear that it was from the original. I just don't remember that in the original movie. Again, it's been a very long time. The movie was made 40 years ago. I think the last time I watched was probably 15 years ago. But that said, I don't think the movie was seriously dependent on having watched the original ones, because it's supposed to be like kind of a revamp of this new series. And so while it's fan service to some people, to the new generation of Ghostbusters, which is what they're trying to do with it, it just felt out of place.
Right. And that makes sense. And for me, like, I just thoroughly enjoy Ghostbusters. Like, I know that the last remake that we had a lot of, which I thought was completely unnecessary, like, I don't know, people had issues with it. People had issues with it, no. And for me, like, seeing it, and it's been a long time. His Twitter handle, if you'd like to cancel him, is
Isolate that audio.
you're never running for office.
I didn't say. I was helping you finish it. You said if I had too many, I was just helping you.
No, there were a lot of people had issues with it, and one of my really good friends, who's like a movie connoisseur, a cinephile, if you will, loved that movie. And I was like, that's awesome. And for me, the only issue, I thought it was a fun movie and I enjoyed it, but for me, I was like, it's just a remake. And a lot of times, remakes for me aren't as cool. And what I wanted and what I was hoping originally when I heard they were doing that was they were the next generation getting the torches handed off to them. Kind of like the cartoons I grew up with and stuff like that. And instead they're like, we're going to do Ghostbusters 1. And I was like, okay, cool. And I enjoyed it. It's funny. A lot of really good comic relief in it, and I really enjoyed it. But the movie I had always wanted was this one, Ghostbusters Afterlife. And I think there's the trope of this kid, 15-year-old kid or whatever, being the hero of a thing. But I feel like for once it didn't kind of feel like super crowbarred in. It was just one of those things where it's like, as she's rebuilding the things, she's getting help from her grandfather, which I was like, okay, that's cool, because it's not explaining why she knows everything. You've already established that she is a very smart person and is even keeping up with a seismologist just because she says school is, a government-funded prison is how she phrases it. And she goes, but I like learning. So I'm like, okay, you're like this cool... she was like my favorite character in the whole thing. I also really liked podcasts because he was just quirky as well. And the fact that everybody came together and had their own like team building moment, kind of like in the original where you're adding on people, I thought it was awesome. And so for me, I had so much fun with it. And when I go to a movie, like that's what I'm looking for. Like when people are like, I didn't like the new Godzilla or the new Jurassic Park, I'm like, I'm not going to that to see like Interstellar or something that's gonna like break my mind. I'm going to that because was there a giant dinosaur? Did it eat someone? Loved it. Like, and so for me, were there ghosts? Yes. Was there humor? Yes. Cool special effects? Yes. Sexiest man? Yes. That was just an added bonus. The only negative, again, the movie theater did not have Hi-C ectoplasm cooler, and I crave that on a regular basis because that is my childhood. Finishing a basketball game, ecto cooler plasma. Like, it's... Forget the Szechuan sauce. Bring this back. Rick and Morty, do your thing. And Dune was great.
I would just, in response to that, I get what you're saying. As far as the characters building in the world, it felt like, I don't know, we made her the quirky girl, we told her not to be herself, but she's in school for 20 minutes and already makes a new best friend. And like, it just kind of felt like a little forced. In my mind, it was like, the story moved so fast. It used so many things that have already been established in just cinema. We didn't need that much. I mean, honestly, I don't know how the movie was 2 hours long, because I don't know where that time went. Because it doesn't make sense. It was 2 hours long. Because everyone was like, jump, jump, jump. And
it's almost like you had fun with it. Because time flies when you're
and
having
then you've got,
fun.
Was it Finn Wolfhard, whatever, the kid from Stranger Things.
Finn, hard as a wolf.
Finn, hard as a wolf. We see him.
Are we allowed to say that?
I guess so. We see him get a job and go to work, but we never have explained to us why Sophie's in summer school. Because it's clearly summer school, and Finn just goes to work, and Sophie, this genius, is in summer school, where they're just watching horror movies with their terrible teacher. And so I just felt like there was kind of some plot holes, and it just kind of like drug out. We were like, I don't know, I get what you're saying, I get the nostalgia aspect of it, I just felt like it wasn't enough. If you want nostalgia, let's just remaster Ghostbusters in 4K and put it out on Netflix.
It's not the same. It's not nostalgia.
It's not nostalgia.
4K. I don't want 4K.
I mean, you both make really good points, and I'm having issues deciding if I'm going to see it now.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you cast James Charles as the big bad guy trying to attack children?
Is James Charles in this movie?
Dude, I don't know, but that's the first thing I thought of, was that it was James Charles, and I went, going after children, how appropriate.
I do want to say that my favorite part of the movie was they did bring in J.K. Simmons in a wig and ridiculous hair, and then he comes to life when the ghosts are all coming up, and then is ripped in half by another monster.
Yeah.
Immediately. The only reason you know it's J.K. Simmons is you see his face and go, I think that's... And he's ripped in half. It's kind of like Brad Pitt's appearance in Deadpool. We were like, I think that was, but I don't know because he died so fast.
Was that Brad Pitt?
And it was,
I think that was Brad Pitt.
Yeah, the
It's
invisible
hilarious.
guy.
The invisible guy gets electrocuted is Brad Pitt. And
Brad
like,
Pitt,
so
yeah.
I thought that scene was hilarious and made a lot of it worth it. But that's not Brad Pitt.
No, that's
That's
not
the
Brad
main
Pitt.
bad person.
That's James
Regardless,
Charles.
I thought that part was funny. Another thing is, the Ghostbusters completely like got out of this realm of like, we bust ghosts. There's no ghosts in the movie. It's all monsters, and I don't understand it. There's no actual ghosts based off any standard of ghosts we've ever had in cinema. It's just monsters being summoned. And then the Stay Puft guys, where did they come from? It was just fan service to reference it.
The
But they just
marshmallow
showed-
bags.
They just showed up, but there was like no explanation to like how the ghosts. They just came out of nowhere, and it was like it just felt random. But I mean, I'm okay with your reason.
I get that, you know.
I'm just saying, like, if you're looking for nostalgia, sure, go waste your money.
Do you know who played Gozer?
Who?
Olivia Wilde.
Oh, really?
That's Olivia Wilde.
Really?
Like look at.
You're gonna
So
tell me
we've
that's
got-
not James Charles?
Okay, so we've got Gozer.
You can't see that.
And we've got James Charles. Like I get it. They made Gozer agender, which is awesome and cool because it's like that goes with the Syrian. I believe the Syrian religion is the Zoroastrianism at that point in time. But like going on with that, like I thought that was really cool that they did that. And the entire time I was like, I really do think this might be James Charles. Like, no, Olivia Wilde. So Olivia Wilde, my apologies to you. Makeup department. If I could stand up in here, I would.
Okay, you guys both make awesome points.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do.
You just slapped me.
Besides that, you guys make awesome points. Like always, we're going to have the audience decide who won. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for your chance to win 2 free passes through Fandango for your next movie. We're going to settle this with one last question that, it's worth all the points. This is the golden snitch of questions.
All right.
Okay, who is the sexiest ghost?
Cody, I want you to say this with me on the count of 3.
All right.
I just
Good housekeeping.
Just,
Oh, wait,
just
okay,
touch
cool.
my hand real
All right,
quick.
cool.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Look me in the eyes.
Yeah.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Paul
Patrick
Rudd.
Swayze.
God
Dang it!
I just want to say Paul Rudd got possessed, and by their definition of ghosts, that makes him now possessed by a ghost thing, deity, and Turn of the Dog thing. But before Turn of the Dog thing, who's just red-eyed Paul Rudd, and we already know Paul Rudd's Sexiest Man of the Year. That's not up for debate. So Paul Rudd's Sexiest Ghost by GQ standards. They just gave him red eyes.
I would like to go back to Cody talking about there could be potentially sexier people who are no longer alive. Patrick Swayze starred in a movie called Ghosts.
Patrick Swayze is still alive. Is Patrick Swayze? He's
He's been dead for a very long time.
We really need to get
like
your
over
mind.
10 years.
I didn't know that the gatekeeper was a key component
What?
to a movie I've seen before.
Oh, I'm thinking of Kevin Bacon. My bad. I don't know why. I've never watched Ghosts.
And that concludes our episode.
I'm done with this. Get out of here.
Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. Holy
I'm
crap.
sad to think I don't know who Patrick Swayze is.
Sorry, Mom. Dad, you probably expected this. I'm just stoked if either of my parents watch this.
I'm so good either of my parents. You know that I have a YouTube channel?
Guys, this is depressing.
Oh, dude.
Hi, Mom. I know you watch our
Wait, does
videos.
your mom watch our videos?
Yeah,
Who's your
she's a
favorite?
big fan. Me, obviously. And then
I don't
Anthony.
believe that.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.